Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Furnace. Round 8 is in the books. We've got plenty to talk about, so let's jump into it. I'm joined every Sunday evening by the Essendon legend, Hirdy. Good evening, James.
Yeah, great to be here, Jimmy. It was a great weekend of footy in terms of the close to the games, the quality of the games, and we've obviously got the game going on at Gold Coast at the moment. Another close game as well, but some really good football, particularly early in the round.
4 points. The Suns lead that one about 3 minutes until they kick off the second half. Bit wet and greasy up there at People's First Stadium, but we'll keep you up to date. Let's jump in to the shootout, which was a little bit earlier today, 3:15. Beautiful sunny day up there in Sydney, and the Swans 131 and Melbourne kicked 114 points. Most sides, when you kick 114, that normally count as a win, but we tipped this on Wednesday, and I think everyone tipped it who's been watching footy this year. We thought it was going to be a blistering game, and it certainly lived up to billing. Joel Amati kicked 4 goals. Well done to Big Brody Grundy, game 250, had 26 and a goal. But Malcolm Roses, we'll get into very shortly, was the man of the moment with 7 majors. But they really punished the Demons off turnover, and I think, Hirdy, the impressive thing for the Demons was I think most sides would drop away, but they kept coming back at the Swans and forced them to play the full 4 quarters. I think at different stages, the band got out to 30 points, 22 points, and then couldn't really get it under. And then at one stage, with about 3 minutes to go, it was down to 11, but Sydney just steadied the ship late.
Yeah, it's a credit to Stephen King and the way he's coaching, the belief the Melbourne players have in the team. I think Sydney, obviously, the better team. They won by a considerable margin of 17 points, but they won convincingly. But I think the way that Melbourne keep coming back says a lot about the feel at Melbourne and the way they're playing. But the Sydney Swans, to me, just the way they move the ball. If you have any sort of turnover in a dangerous part of the ground, you can't defend it properly, you're no chance. And that's where Sydney are just, they're very good in defence, but in attack, they're scary.
A lot of focus was on Charlie Curnow, of course, being the big boom recruit, but they also picked up Sarong, who's been fantastic. Another gentleman they got from the Gold Coast Suns was Malcolm Roses, and he has some of the quickest feet in the business. He's already sidestepping here before he's even got the ball, but he was the Johnny on the spot. He was front and square, he kept his width, danced around a lot of people, but converted brilliantly. At one stage, he had 5 goals in the first 40 minutes of the game. Every time the ball went forward, he was the man on the end of it, but he just kept fronting up. And look at that, great positioning. It's the old Dave Whedon triangle. Make sure you're in the eyes of the handballer and you could get used, and he certainly converted with a lot of snaps, and good for him to actually step up because it's normally Papley. Being the small forward, but if you've got another live wire, it makes it difficult for the opposition.
Width is a new word in football. We talk about holding width, holding lanes, particularly in attack where you're that high forward, that small forward, you're holding your lanes in it for defence, but also to receive the ball. And those players that can do it well, it used to be just the wingmen who hold their width, but now it's those high forwards. And sometimes you're there and you get the ball 0 times for the game, but on this occasion, Malcolm Roses made the most of his opportunities. 7 goals, that's a wonderful effort.
Let's keep talking about ball movement. A lot has been made of the Swans' ball movement, the forward handball and the releasing of a player. And normally it's the lizard, and we'll show a couple of edits here, and it is the lizard involved in quite a few, Nick Blakey, but it's also a bit of a reference for Melbourne's defence. So let's just freeze it here. That's Jath there. Now, you've got 2 options. You either roll up, I think that's Heeney, the closest one on the boundary line, and then there's the one over the top of Jath. Now, you either stay with the one back and then force Heeney to kick over your head, or you roll up really hard and force another handball, because when we go to the next bit, that's where Melbourne spares. Both players end up getting the ball.
Yeah, the best teams in the competition. Jath rolls up, and then it's Max, and I think, I'm not sure who the other player is. Fritsch. They've actually already rolled up, so that you actually keep coming up and coming up and coming up and hitting the man with the ball. Jath hesitated, which means that he hasn't done anything. And then Bailey Fritsch and Max have hesitated. So you've actually got nothing, and this is where holes form in the game.
Look at centre half back. There goes the lizard. Not sure where Sharp's going. He was going to run into the protector zone. But what do you think is going to happen as soon as they sense that they're going to get involved in attack? They're going to all run in waves. So you've got to either body check, or you've got to at least, when you get up there, you can't allow the Liz to keep going in that straight line. So he might get the handball received, but you need to somehow corral him out towards the boundary and at least take a bit of pace off, or give your backs a chance to win one side of the contest.
But the reason they get space to the middle of the ground is because of the width. The big defenders have actually pulled out. The defenders have pulled out to create that width or the space to the middle of the ground. And it's just a great team effort to watch the way Sydney move the ball. Yes, they're highly talented, but the way their system and structure plays in offence defends the ground, but also makes it bigger to score.
We're both fans of Isaac Heeney. I think most people who follow footy are fans of Isaac Heeney. Any man that can play midfield, half forward and dominate. Look, I'm not going to debate the top 5, but he's certainly in the top 5 in the competition when he's up and fit.
Well, you never sit on the fence, Jimmy, so we'd love to give you your opinion. Is he number 1 in the competition or not?
No.
All right, who is?
Nick Dacos.
Yeah, I think Nick still is, but I'm watching Isaac Heeney. The reason I love watching Heeney is he's fantastic in a contest. Like, look at that, in the contest, he's strong, uses the ball well, laser-like kicks when he's free. But up forward, he is a genuine contested mark against anyone that's his height or probably 2 or 3 inches taller. Not against the big guys, but he's so hard to match up against because he's great in the contest, but going forward, he's a wonderful contested mark.
Do we just make the argument for him to be number one?
I mean, look, I don't think you go past Nick Dacos at the moment. I still think he's the number one player. He gets tagged harshly every week and still performs at an incredible level, but there's not much between them.
And there's no disrespect to the Bont or Naz or any other supporters or things like that. Hey, they did it pretty well considering they had one man down for pretty much the whole entire game. Brody Mychak went off very early in this game with a hamstring injury, so there's a bit of bad luck for the D's, a bit of bad luck for Brody. Obviously, we'll wait to hear from Melbourne the full report on his hamstring and how long he could potentially be out for. But speaking of Brody Mychak, he joins his former teammate Jack Crisp and his now current teammate Carlton Tholstrop in Players, which comes on Monday night after Footy Classified, and also you can catch that on YouTube. So it'd be great to see Brody, of course, Crispy and Tholstrop as well. Carlton played St Kilda. I think this game, Hirdy, we're watching it more. I think I was watching this game more for St Kilda than Carlton because we know what Carlton are about, and they certainly delivered on that with another fade out, 5-goal runs. The mentality of the Blues. I think there's a mentality with sides playing Carlton as well, because the self-fulfilling prophecy as well. I think that's crept into Carlton. I think they're waiting for the opposition to keep coming at them. Of course, with the way they play, 11 times since the start of 2025, they've been leading at half-time and given up the lead. But I think also opposition now knows we only have to be a few goals, 3 or 4 goals, and we're going to get this mob, as they say in local footy.
And my question is at capacity, can they actually run? Can they get to the outside? Can they get to the next contest? Everyone's saying, is it defence, is it attack, is it contest? I just don't think it's the old thing, Jimmy, of the outnumbering. I don't think when you watch the Carlton enough, the next contest, they don't outnumber the way the opposition does after half-time. And if you don't outnumber in this game, if there's 2v3, 3v4, 4v5, more often than not, you'll get beaten. So I watched the game last night, and particularly after half-time, their outnumber was really, really poor. And I think it's one of the reasons, or the main reason, why they just can't compete after half-time, because they're getting outnumbered all around the ground, particularly on ground balls and balls that spill out of the next contest.
The skipper has been a warrior, Patrick Cripps, especially around clearance and contest. But how can they help him as far as how can they get him to have the impact that they need him to have on the game? Because even we always know what he's been, but it just doesn't seem to have the impact that it used to have around stoppage and clearance.
Look, Patrick Cripps has been a fantastic player and still is a very, very good player in the AFL and, still one of the best contested clearance players in the competition. But for a guy of that height, he should be taught, I mean, how old's he been in the competition? 10 years or so? More. He should be able to go forward and provide 1 or 2 goals when needed at 6'4" or, whatever weight he is. I can't believe they don't have the ability to use him up there more and he actually scores for them more.
His set shot goal kicking is deplorable.
Yeah, and so that is just about, it's just contest. And you know what it's like, 10 to 12 years, even longer, inside the contest, just batters your body. Some stage, when I wasn't getting a kick, she'd just send me deep forward, well, let's just get a goal, just get a couple of goals. And that used to be the way to get you out of your funk or not having the right sort of, swing to your game. But I just don't see that from Patrick to be able to do that. And if I was him and I wanted my career to grow longer, I'd be as good as I can in the contest, but what's the next string to his bow? Can he go forward, take a couple of marks and set up a couple of goals?
Speaking of goals, we were bigger on the Saints. We've always been bigger as far as defensive side of the ball. Any side that plays for Ross Lyon, you better play defence. But adding the scoring element, and they've done that this year. 4 times they've kicked over 100 points. Absolutely, and I think it goes down to the players. That the TDK. I actually thought he played really well on the weekend and actually did some good things and dominated around with his hit-outs, kicked a couple of goals. You got Naz coming through the middle of the ground. Their ball movement is more expansive. Kicked 100 points 4 times this year. I think they only kicked more than 100 points once last year. And there's been a lot of critics of the players that bought in and what St Kilda have done. But I think right now, it's 4, with what the wins they've had, I think it's 4 and 4 they're up to. I think it's a success. I think they're only getting it better into the second half. 107, 102, 143 and 108. And you mentioned the expansive ball movement. I think there's some key players. I know a lot of coaches talk about structure, but personnel matters. And it was always Nasai can do it. But this man coming back in the side is so important. I'm a big fan of Henry and what he can do because he's got that flexibility. I think he's a three-positional player. Yeah, it's half forward, it's up through the midfield. I include the wings in the midfield, but I think he can come off half back. And the form of Brad Hill, I think since going and playing that Western Australian State of Origin game, not that he needs it, but for me, it reminded him that he belongs at the upper echelon because he's got great work rate, ball use. And what that allows you to do, if you get those guys into form, and then if they can get Wilson back in the side as well, it's that run and carry, that 70-metre players. Then you don't have to rely on Naz to come back to half-back to get you out of there. You can go sit him in the goal square, or you can get a little bit funky in far of what matchup he's got. So Henry and Hill up and firing, and hopefully Wilson. Now you've got some electric speed and ball use on the outside off the turnover.
Yeah, and they're not the finished product by any stretch of the imagination. They need to beat, some scalps and kick on for the year. But they seem to be a mature footy club with what happened during last week with the Ross Lyon side of things, solving the problems. They're together, they're playing for each other, and that stands for a lot at this level of competition. We
love big hangers, Hirdy, and it's time for this week's High Flyer. Thanks to Fiji Airways. Fiji are going to send you and I with Footy Furnace over to Fiji, the happiest from Australia to the world. Well, it was Matt Carroll here, and taking a big hanger. He's actually done this a few times, coming off the wing position, and that's what's been asked of the wing. If you've got a bit of height, 6'2 plus, Dempsey, Curtin, Carroll, come off the wing. You're not just going down there defensively. Test the opposition. Fly for your marks, the old slider or fat side mark where you come in the back, go take it. There's some good opportunities.
Yeah, the tall winger, I think, is underestimated too. The winger that can jump and actually take the mark. I mean, the wing roll now, you have to get to the point from point post to point post, get the width. But if you do get a chance to take the mark or get a shot at goal, it's very, very valuable.
That was all thanks to Fiji Airways for this week's High Flyer. From Fiji, you can connect straight into a growing North American network, Hirdy. You can go do some work in New York if you want, including Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, Honolulu, and Vancouver with Fiji Airways. Your holiday starts before you land. All right, let's get to it, Hirdy.
What are we getting to now?
You know what we're getting to. The Bombers versus the Brisbane Lions.
I thought we were going to avoid this one, but anyway.
Hey, can I tell you what Brisbane's been doing for the last 3 to 4 years?
No, tell me.
Do you know what they're very good at? If you give them space, they'll use the free. They can knock up uncontested marks. So it's got me baffled why you concede 49 uncontested marks in the first quarter alone, and that's probably why you only had 66 possessions in the first quarter. You've got to at least force the side to beat you in a different way, and we just want to show this edit. We might have to go again because I was still rambling there. That's Zach Merritt pumping the ball inside forward 50. But why are 5 guys there acting like they're about to win the ball in the forward 50?
Yeah, I mean, and they're not pressing. They're doing nothing. They're in the middle of the ground doing nothing. As soon as that ball goes in, those guys should have read the cues and said, righto, we're going to lose this ball. We're not going to get to the fall of the ball. Let's locate a man or defend the ground. They did neither.
Roll it again, can you, Luca, our main man upstairs? Because we'll have a look at it again. We want to see Zach Merritt. So what we're talking about here, as soon as the ball leaves the area, you start to sum up, right, from now. Where are we turning to defend? Where are we locating? The other bit when it plays out, so they haven't located, they're still heading forward. So it's slow decision making. Rolls up on the mark. This is what I want you to look. Pick a player, any player, and then find another one. I guarantee you half are doing one thing and half are doing another thing. We've got some guys trying to zone and come up and help. Others have got the arm across deep in the goal square and manning up. I just want them to pick a style defensively.
Yeah.
And there's been a body of work over, how many are we up to? So when we look at their defensive numbers, 18th for points against, 18th for uncontested marks, averaging 118.9 against. That might be my starting area because in the last 25 times that they've conceded 100 uncontested marks, they've lost 23. So that's a pretty big stat for you.
Yep. Inside
50s against, no wonder. You're 18th because you're giving up the ball. And then the marks inside forward 50, well, because it's just showing you don't value defending. 150, 155, 133, 100. Their 2 best weeks. Second, from the second half, Melbourne, and then obviously in Gold Coast, 71, 76, and then we're back to 125 and 141.
Yeah, no, it's unacceptable, really. And it goes to me to... Look, Ben McKay has been harshly criticised by his own fans, by everyone in the media. First, I say Ben McKay is not that bad a player. Ben McKay has got a lot of talent and is a very good footballer. I think lacking a hell of a lot of confidence. And he's lacking confidence in his decision-making. He's become very reactive. He's not sure, should he go there, should he go there? And I think that underlies, it's not Ben McKay, it's the system you're talking about.
What I mean.
And the system is actually allowing him to be exposed.
Correct.
And which is really upsetting for him. It's really upsetting for his family. Yes, is he playing his best football? No. But I think he's lost confidence as a result of the system he's in, not providing him with the protection he needs to provide. I mean, you put the numbers up before of 59, inside 50s against. That's the worst in the competition. Uncontested marks is the worst in the competition, which means the ball's moving so fast. How can this guy be expected to defend? Yes, he needs to do a little bit better. But I'd actually change the dynamic on Ben McKay. I'd put him up forward for a couple of weeks. You know why I put him up forward? Because the first thing you lose as a defender, you lose your first instinct, your reaction to either punch, to mark the ball, to go at the ball. Put him up forward. Give him a chance to actually fly at the ball again, get some confidence back, and then put him down back. Because at the moment, I don't see him get his confidence back when the ball's coming in 60 times a game, flat out as fast as it is. He's not sure whether to go that way, or that way. Get his confidence back, but more importantly for Essendon, set up a defensive structure that stops the uncontested mark and allows your defence to actually defend.
Yeah, and what compounds this, to go on about it, is when they finally do win the ball back, because we're talking about halfway between man-on-man and halfway between zone, which makes people like Ben McKay in the system get exposed further. But when they turn the footy over, half of them are still trying to play this deny the opposition ball in hand. So if you drew we've said this before, the world record line, the swimmers' world record line where the ball is, there's too many players behind that line.
Yep.
And what ends up happening is they go forward. Now the opposition turns the ball over, and then we're back into this situation we spoke about. Half are pressing up, half are going back, and then it's just big gaps, and it just turns to tic-tac-toe, and we're at the end again.
The best teams, once the ball has left their area or they can't impact, are setting up the ground, finding a man, then pushing him up from there and making sure that they've got the ground covered, and then taking the opposition to one side of the ground. We just don't see any of that, particularly in that first quarter against the Lions.
You got 15 seconds to talk about the mountain that's been made out of molehill. Essendon whiteboard, Brisbane whiteboard, my apologies. That's the Essendon side on there that highlights their strengths and weaknesses.
I don't need 15 seconds, I don't care.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. For more on how the ladder might take shape, here's Jules Vallance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, so this ladder, look, it's getting tight at the top. We've got Sydney, Freo. They're a half a game clear, obviously, then of Hawthorn, and then they're 1.5 clear of Brisbane and the Cats. So let's get to the next few games, because I think this is going to be really interesting to see how this evolves. Fremantle versus Hawthorn this week. Fremantle will be marginal favourites there at Optus Stadium, I think. Round 10, Brisbane-Geelong, key game. Then Geelong host Sydney. That will be very interesting in round 11. And then round 12, Brisbane host Fremantle. The reason I'm talking about this is PointsBet app, get to the futures, get to the Foxcatcher Footy Hub. We've got to mark it right now. Now, Sydney, after round 12, is favourite, $2.35, ahead of Fremantle, $3.75, Brisbane at $4.75, then Hawthorn at $5. Those key matches that we just spoke about will shape who's going to be ladder leader halfway through the season. Swans favourite? I'm going to stick with the Purple Haze.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Footy Furnace, brought to you by the PointsBet AFL lock screen tracker. PointsBet, it's like hot sauce for sport. What's gambling really costing you?
Thanks for that, Jules. 23-point lead for the Gold Coast Suns. Goals to Jamara Ugle-Hagan and Christian Petrarca. So the Suns have come out of half-time and certainly responded. They were a bit up and down in that first half. They should have put the Giants to the sword early, but then just sort of went away from the hardball.
They started well, but yeah, lost the contest and lost the outnumber. But the Giants, lesser wins, but it's a big game for both teams.
West Coast took on Richmond out west, and it's now time for the go big moment. And my go big moment was the final 90 seconds was fantastic, and well done to Willem Dersma here. You want to watch where he comes from. This game on the line. He's just gone there on the wing, charging forward, running power, scoops it on his left, heading out to the boundary line. And that gave him a shot at potentially winning the game back at the centre bounce. But Seth Campbell gets on the end of this, smashes it from 60. Nice little outswinger here. calls a number and hangs up. Game over. Richmond get their first win of the year. Well done to the Tigers and Adamuze because there was a lot of pressure. So that was the go big moment for Hyundai. 5 Car of the Year awards in 2025. 4 more already in 2026. Proof of brand defined by trust, reliability and exceptional after-sales care. Do big things with Hyundai. Now, the next gentleman I want to raise, he does cop a whack, sometimes deserved, but we expect a lot out of him. Big athletic beast. And Noah Bolter, who I thought had a very good game. You got to give them their plaudits when they deserve it. And I thought this was a high football IQ, which actually led up to the Seth Campbell goal. Big contest in the ruck, wins the ball back. Now, he could be forgiven for smashing that forward, but he notices it, out the side, finds the free, which then leads into actually saying the Seth Campbell goal. So, understood the moment of the game. Likely we should go wide instead of just bashing it down there where the Eagles could potentially intercept the ball and come back through you. Took half a beat, found the target, game sealed.
Yeah, because all the defenders will be laying off, expecting that to go down, and then you get an uncontested mark or an intercept mark, and then it goes back to their own. Very smart football.
West Coast, their next 4 games. They have Melbourne away, Giants at home, Collingwood away, and Essendon at home. What do we need to see from the West Coast Eagles? We don't want any more 100-point losses, of course. We want them to keep advancing forward. I think
that was a disappointing loss with the Richmond injuries. I thought
yeah,
West Coast, Richmond injuries had a lot of injuries. I would have thought West Coast could get that one across the line, but yeah, look, both Richmond and West Coast are still unfinished products and need a lot of work.
Hirdy, I'm very excited to get into our next game. We can debate why the madness this wasn't a standalone game. It feels like we've had this debate for many, many years. We're talking about the showdown. Adelaide and Port Adelaide. What a thriller. Let's get into the final moments. Let's start with how Adelaide almost lost it. So play the vision out of this one.
So here we have Jimmy, just to pause here. See Isaac Rankin here. He's the spare Adelaide player in this stoppage. Look at the front of that stoppage, the Port Adelaide stoppage. Look at the gap between Malera and the stoppage there. There's too big a gap. The ball goes out. And again, it's another stoppage. Rankin now is trying to find a man. He's the spare. Where should he go? If we pause here, there's Rankin. Go a bit further. Rankin should be right there in that spot, so they can't come out. What would happen then if Rankin goes and sits in that spot as the spare? The Port Adelaide player and Berry has to roll up on him. Malera is spare behind it, and you don't get what happens. This is classic training of the last minute of a game in stoppage. What should you have? Port have been very smart to take all their players to the back of their stoppage so they can rush through, but Adelaide should have been smart enough, particularly Rankin as their spare, and sat exactly where that hole is there.
And Taylor, as the match-up for Wines in that one, it's a mismatch to start with. You've just got to be stronger here. He just accepts getting pushed off by Ollie Wines, who's the one who breaks through and then gets it out to the eventual Berry goal. There he goes. He's already pushed off. And you're talking about there, Valera wouldn't have had to roll up because Rankin would have been there. And even if Ollie Wines took the ball, it would have been at least forced a lob or, sort of handball, so Valera could close it out. But he's up and you've lost the whole gap. It's a great finish.
Straight to Rankin's hands, right?
Yeah.
And that's the stoppage. So everyone thinks that Adelaide's lost the game off that stoppage and that Rankin's we're saying, Rankin, you made a mistake. But then let's fast forward 20 seconds longer. And this is the mistake by Port Adelaide. If you watch this centre clearance here, that tap should be hit down to 9 or down to 3, really close. Rankin gets the free kick. Everything you're taught at this stage, if you're in front in the centre square, is keep it close, keep it tight so they can't get out. Rankin pumps it long. If you win this ball as a Port Adelaide player, what should you do? Keep it in the contest. The last thing you want to do is do this. Pump it out, because you know why? You're giving the Adelaide Crows space and time. Yes, it's unfortunate. Great play by Malera. And again, an incredible goal. But the mistake by Port Adelaide there is firstly the tap, hitting it to the outside, and then Bergman, whatever you do, I know he saw Butt as his best player, his captain, and wanted to give it to him, but don't give a 10-metre handball. Just
roll to your help.
Just roll to your help. And he had 2 players behind him. It showed Adelaide not quite understanding the last moments and it showed Port Adelaide not quite understanding the last moments. And it could have been done a lot better by both teams. And fortunately for Adelaide, they got across the line.
Are we able to just quickly play the centre bounce? Big Jordan Sweet's been fantastic the last couple of weeks, but you probably don't need to wind up. And this is what Hirdy's talking about. That's a big wind up. That's not landing where that Amy logo is in the centre bounce, which you're talking about. You want to actually almost land it on the logo, almost tapping it onto your own feet. So, I'm not sure why the big like that.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but it just strikes me as teams that haven't practiced that enough. I mean, the first thing the runner would go out to the ruckman is keep it tight, or he should know. if you're in front with 50, 60, even a minute, 2 minutes to go, everything should be in this little circle.
I know you weren't excited by whiteboard chat. I'm not excited by the draw chat. The draw is an actual result, the way you attack it either side of the game. But did you think the Hawks or the Pies got away with one? My sense being at the ground, it felt like the Hawks got away with it because Collingwood had the game on their bat. Your thoughts?
I don't think Collingwood should have been that close. I think, the Hawks should have won the game, a quarter earlier. They just dominated. I mean, centre clearance, inside 50, 62 to 34, and 12 marks 12 marks by Hawthorn inside the 50 after that domination meant that their forward line didn't really work on the night, which is unusual for the Hawks forward line. But with that domination inside 50s, I think the Hawks should have been a long way ahead. But when Collingwood did get in front, They mucked it up in that last 90 seconds. And that's the thing they've been renowned for, the Pies, is icing a game. I think they better go back to their 2-minute drill because it didn't work on Thursday night.
Well, let's keep chatting the Hawks and their secret weapon. Here's Jules Valance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, talking about Hawthorn, they're a really key, interesting team when this next part we're going to do. And we're going to drill down into some little cheat codes that I think's developed throughout the season. Hawthorn have an absolute brilliant one. We know that the Cats down at GMHBA in the last 2 or 3 seasons has the best home ground advantage in terms of market. They're expected to win there more than any other home team at their home ground. But Hawthorn at UTAS Stadium is something to behold since 2023. 13 games, 12 wins, 1 loss. The only loss, obviously, to 3 points to Adelaide. And then when you talk about market expectation of covering the line. So, for example, they were expected to beat Collingwood by 28 points Thursday night or Friday night when they played them, and the Pies ended up a draw. So they lose that. So that's not covering the line. But down in Tasmania, they cover the line 9 of the 12 times, smashing market expectation. They've got 3 more games down there: Adelaide, Melbourne, North Melbourne. And when you're trying to figure out who's going to make the top 4 and be a chance to play off in a grand final, well, having 4 games down in Tasmania is obviously a big advantage for Hawthorn. And then we've got the Gold Coast, who next week are going up to Darwin. Well, this is even better. Since 2022, they've played 8 games. Guess how many they've won? Yeah, they've won them all. Outstanding. They've covered the line in all of them as well. So plenty of money to be made out of Gold Coast. This year, they'll play St Kilda, obviously, next week, and then Port Adelaide. And again, for a team that is struggling at the moment, trying to figure out if they're going to make top 6, top 8, well, those 2 games in Darwin, market and history tells us it's a sure thing.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Now, if you're heading to the footy or exploring Melbourne, Brady Hotels and Apartments is the place to stay.
It is, Jim, offering great value across 4 CBD locations, all within walking distance of the MCG and Marvel Stadium.
Flinders Street and Hardware Lane feature spacious apartment-style stays, while Central Melbourne and Jones Lane put you right in the heart of the action.
Family and friends can enjoy Melbourne their way. Some head to the footy, while others explore the city's best dining, shopping and attractions, all while getting excellent value for their stay.
Brady Hotels and Apartments, the smart, value-packed base for game day and city adventures. Goal to Jesse Hogan closes the gap to 2 goals, but the Suns still lead that 54 to 42 at People's First Stadium. Geelong versus North Melbourne down at GMHBA Stadium. Going to this game with the Cats' form being a little bit average against Port Adelaide, and North Melbourne trying to make that step into the next group. It was a pretty even game for about 2.5, 3 quarters, and then Geelong remembered their Geelong in Geelong and put the foot down in the last quarter.
Well, North Melbourne, remember they were North Melbourne in Geelong because they haven't won there for years. But I actually like what North Melbourne did for 2.5, 3 quarters. I thought they showed a maturity. They were dynamic. They defended well. They were great around the contest. They couldn't sustain it for the whole game, but I really liked the way they did it.
Are you going to come to the dark side? Because since we've been doing this show together, you've been mocking me about North Melbourne's percentage.
I haven't been mocking. I've just been questioning. But no, look, it is building up. It is building up, and it want to be after 5 years of being pretty poor. But no, look, I think North Melbourne definitely improved. The people out there saying they haven't. I like what Alistair Clark's is doing. I know people want it to happen more quickly, but it takes time. Young kids, young players take time, and a lot of their list is still young. They need some more depth in their back line, some more strength in their back line. But I think that I think they'll pop. They'll pop late in this year. Will they get the top 10? I'm not sure, but it's not necessarily about that keep improving, and I think next year they'll be a very, very good team.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I use percentage. Just reflects both sides of the footy. You know, you can have one and you can have the other, but that reflects pretty well both sides of the footy. Hirdy, the next thing I want to talk about, I'm using Sherry and, of course, young Edwards from the Cats, and it's probably the discussion a lot of clubs are having at the moment is what type of ruck do you want in today's footy? Sherry is a fantastic ruck. He was a beast. He dominated, clearances and contested possessions, and he had a good battle with Edwards when it comes to the actual ruck hit-out work. And when it came to that last quarter, Edwards' work in the centre bounce, he was able to jump up and over and give the Cats real momentum, which is important on the skinny ground there at GMHBA Stadium, because you can just whack it in and then get your defence as well. I think the discussion and I guess the debate at match committee, if you've got two different types of rucks, and we saw even starting tonight's game, the Giants and the Suns, Lek Alia took so many centre bounces because the importance of the big, long person instead of Briggs, who's a bit more Sherry-like, which is bang, body, crash, the ball drops to the ground.
I think because of the 5 on the bench, you can play 2 ruck. I like the sides of playing 2 rucks so that you can have a guy who can jump and get his hand to the ball in the centre square. It's such an advantage to be able to dominate and dictate in that centre square after a goal. Just because there's only 4 players in there, you get that great advantage. But you do need players around the contest, around the ground to be able to bustle a little bit. I think if you're asking what's the prototype ruckman, it's a guy wearing number 11 at Melbourne. Yeah. I think he's probably the prototype, isn't it? Gets up over the top, taps it where he wants, takes contested marks and kicks goals.
And gets around the ground. He's a freak, Max. Good. The Dogs and Freo, I think coming into this game, how well Freo's going, we thought too many injuries for the Dogs, but they were incredibly brave. They lost no friends there at Marvel Stadium with the roof open. And what jumped out to me was the Dogs' ability to slow Freo's ball movement down. And we know Freo can fall into that trap, but this year they've been pretty exciting. And, more willing to give that forward handball and play with a bit more pace and play. But all these are forced Freo to go back behind the mark, play this long down the line method. They've got a good target to go to most of the time with Tracy, who can fight, and Voss as well, and then Mason Cox coming to the side. But it was really noticeable being at Marvel Stadium the other night, how they were actually able to take the pace out of Freo and actually force Freo to really try and force the game late with some different matchups. And Freo are playing a little bit in fits and starts. I don't mean that as a negative. It's just showing how well they're going. They're putting 4 and 5 goal bursts, and then the opposition comes at them, but they hold firm.
It was one of the rare occasions where both sides would be happy with what happened. The Dogs undermanned. They didn't. I don't think anyone thought they could win the game, except maybe the inner sanctum. They played better than they have over the past month with the injuries, a couple of players coming back. But for Freo to win a game on a Friday night in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, doesn't matter how much they win by. They're just racking up the wins. They finish top of the table if they can, or top 2. They get a home final. It's a very mature win, even though it wasn't as pretty as you would have hoped.
They keep putting more tape on Bont's leg, and he keeps playing exceptional footy. Would you just give him a week off? But he's getting through games and playing beautiful football.
I don't know how injured he is, and it's hard to say from the outside. But the reason I probably wouldn't is they got Port Adelaide this week, right? And I think for Western Bulldogs at the moment, they've got to win the winnable games. There are sides they're not going to beat with injuries they have. If Bont's near to fit enough and he can get through the game and he won't hurt himself, they're going to need him because they're going to need a win like this if they want to hang on long enough till all the injuries come back to make the finals.
For more on the informed teams of the comp, here's Jules Valance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, really enjoyed the chat with Hirdy in terms of teams that are in form. And Freo, top of the tree just about with Sydney, you would think of that. We've got a bit of a different lens at Foxcatcher. Bear with me here. We're going to talk about market expectation and teams in the last 4 weeks that we can trust, that are as good at going as any team in the competition. The ladder might not show it, but you're making money out of them. Top of the tree, St Kilda, outstanding. Now, they've got to go to Gold Coast next week, and we've talked about Gold Coast being an outstanding team up there, winning 8 from 8 since 2022. So that might be an advantage taking St Kilda. The Cats, Collingwood, will they play each other next week? One of them's going to fall. North Melbourne, will they dip below? They were going 3-0 in the last 3. Obviously, this week, the Cats got a hold of them, so that drops them below that. But Port Adelaide's another fascinating team as well. They're the healthiest team in the last 5 weeks, 26 players. The ladder doesn't show it, but they're going better than what the ladder says right now. And they're going to play the Dogs next week, and they're going to be underdogs, but they play them at home. And look where the Dogs sit in terms of market expectation. Well, they're below, top of the below, because of their health. It is absolutely rotten. Their last 5 weeks, they've had to use 35 players. It's the most used in the comp, and that's where you see them. They're 1-3, along with the Crows, who are struggling. And then West Coast and Richmond, we know all about those woes that those two teams have. So an interesting, different way to look at it. Maybe the Saints up at the Gold Coast, but Port Adelaide against the Dogs might be the trick one.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Footy Furnace, brought to you by the all-new Alexio EV by Hyundai. Fiji Airways, the happiest way from Australia to the world. Fiji Airways, where happiness takes flight. And Brady Hotels and Apartments, Melbourne CBD accommodation just minutes from Marvel Stadium and the MCG.
90 seconds until three-quarter time up at People's First Stadium. Gold Coast Suns lead that by 18 points. A goal from Johnny Noble, but the Suns, they've defended really well in this quarter. It's been field position by the Giants, and goal kicking has been woefully stinky in this one. 26 combined points. Good time to be a fullback or take kick-ins. You'll fatten up the stat sheet as well. So 8 goals 13 to 5 goals 13 here. And the Suns started this game really well, Hirdy. When we were watching this, geez, they're sharp. Christian Petrarca were kicking a long bomb. They were getting those out numbers a lot. And the Giants looked a little bit shaky behind the ball, but they toughened up around the contest. I know that sounds a bit old school, but the ball is pretty slippery up there. It's a tough night to be a key forward. They're getting out and they're getting their space, but it's very hard to hold on to marks. That great long running goal from Cadman came off the back of a brilliant long kick from Finn Callaghan right across the ground. Speaking of struggling not to mark, there you go, you made a fool of me, but there's been a lot of drop marks in greasy, slippery conditions. Big
quarter coming up for the Suns. Look, they need this win. They really need this win. I think they've been down on form the last 3 weeks since the start of the season. And, you know, the GWS aren't the best team in the competition, but they're not a bad team. They're a good team and they've got a lot of good players in them inside their team. But I just think for the Suns, this is a must-win to get some confidence around their game and also just their contest side of things. I mean, they're inside 50s, they're dominating. They need to get the ball in there more, and I just think it's a game they have to win.
Yeah, closing in on three-quarter time, it is the Suns by 18 points, and it's before the Suns head off on their Northern Territory swing, which they're near unbeatable up there, up north. It's normally actually Jack Lukosius kicking big bags of 5 goals. He turns into prime Wayne Carey up there. It's time for the early check-in. Thank you to Brady Hotels and Apartments for this week's early check-in with great value across 4 CBD locations, all just minutes from Marvel Stadium and the G. Brady Hotels is the perfect choice for your footy weekend accommodation. Well, we're pretty much a third of the way through the season, Hirdy. We've had some key players play really well and get some injuries, but who is your current leader of the Brownlow?
I'd have to be Nick Dacos. I think he's probably, he's still, you know, he's had a couple of games where he's maybe been tagged. His sort of possessions haven't been great, but I still think he's probably leading the Brownlow. What about yourself?
Yeah, look, I've got Nick consistently across the first third. The Bond would be snapping at his heels. He's playing great footy. You'd love to say Big Max Gorn, but Rucks very, very rarely win Brownlows these days. Christian Petrarca will poll high,
but he's missed a couple.
But he's missed a couple, and that's the big issue. That's it for us on Footy Furnace, but Footy Classified Monday night, I'll be joined by Damien Barrett, Sam McClure and Matthew Lloyd, and Tuesday night you'll be there with Ed, Rory and Cal Toomey.
Yep.
And then you and I are back Wednesday for Footy Furnace. But thanks for joining us here on Sunday night's Footy Furnace.